It's different for the males and it's different for the females. The commonest cancer in India will continue to be, and has been for a long time, lung. It's raising its numbers each year. It used to be head and neck cancer for a long, long time. Head and neck area, various parts of head and neck, which means the tongue, the oral cavity, the pharynx, the upper part of the food pipe. But now that cancer has slowly gone down. It's still a significant cancer in our country, head and neck. We had in the women for a long, long time, the commonest cancer was cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is now ebbed, and breast cancer has taken over as the major cancer for women in our country. Whereas in the West, breast cancer petered down. So cancer epidemiology changes over time from year to year, from decade to decade. And if you look at our cancer registry, that records that shift, demographic shift that happens from time to time. So lung, head and neck, cervical, breast, GI, gastrointestinal cancers, they are considerable. Like the old saying that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound in cure is absolutely correct, because if you there are two levels of prevention. One is primary prevention, which means if this is a cancer producing environment, don't go there at all. It's called primary prevention. Secondary prevention, which is more interesting and more workable and more practical, means that if you have to, you can't live without being in that environment, like living the current life that we live, wear the clothes which have the coloring agents, eat the kind of food which have the preservatives, and various other things that we can't control, which seep carcinogens, known carcinogens, cancer producing substances in our diet, in our air, in the external environment. Lifestyle is one of the most major reasons for cancer production. The other is genetics, the genetic message that you carry inside you. But lifestyle is a major chunk, whether it's through tobacco usage, alcohol usage, the kind of food we eat, the kind of social norms we follow in terms of the number of children we rear, the age at which we get married, the amount of time we give to our health, and the kind of preventive strategies that we adopt from time to time, like do we go for checkups or don't we do that, and all those things. And stress also has now sort of come in. So lifestyle is a major challenge in terms of cancer production, and prevention. At least 70% of that occurs through lifestyle, can be prevented by a simple change in lifestyle. Yes, why not? Because uh, food is again a lifestyle choice. Food and drink is something that you adopt, some people do. So towards the north of this country, Jammu and Kashmir, on the tip of this country, more mountainous areas, and down south at the southern tip, a lot of GI cancers related to the kind of food they eat. Spices, the way they cook it, whether you charboil it, whether you roast it, mutton, a lot of red meat is consumed, high spice intake, a lot of cancers in the GI tract. But the highest stomach cancer is in the state of Mizoram, because again linked to the kind of food they eat. A lot of non-veg, which without being cooked, just being roasted over the fire with the carbonaceous deposits on that, creating the carcinogenic environment that is just right for developing a cancer. So similarly, not only in this country, if you look towards your neighbors, Afghanistan, a lot of GI cancer, again to the roasting of red meat and runs and all that they take there. Northern tip of Iran, the northern tip of China, again related to food. So GI cancers are food related, and food is again a lifestyle choice. So has to also do with alcohol consumption, by the way, creation of gastritis and erosions inside your gastrointestinal tract. These hilly, mountainous areas have a lot of alcohol consumption as well, and a lot of masala usage. So a lot of acid peptic dyspepsia and Barrett's esophagus get created there. And that's where you have high GI cancer. Well, some forms of preservation and preparation, it is also in the diet. For instance, red meat is, if the diet is compulsively red meat, if it's not balanced with the other bits like lean meat, enough veggies, fruits, and if it doesn't have a proper balance, it's imbalanced in favor of red meat, it's problematic. But the way you prepare that red meat, if you use a lot of spices and do jisko hum log bolte hain tadka, when we do that, that is bad because again of the polycyclic hydrocarbons and aromatic amines that we create in our body, nitrates, nitrites, superradicals. Pickling is again problematic because if you use pickled meats particularly, they are dangerous and are responsible for creating stomach cancers. Similarly, when you roast it directly over the flame, that carbon black deposit that gets deposited on top of that meat is cancer producing, is a known carcinogen. So we're just talking about food here, but there are other things that we consume. Alcohol, smoking, all these are lifestyle elements which destroy your environment, make it a cancer-producing environment. These are part. So the external environment and the internal environment. Food becomes an internal environment. It creates the right. And if there is a genetic message as well, you get unlucky. All of them combine together to do the bad job. Climate change over a period of time, I do not think the impacts on healthcare and cancer production are so evident at the moment of we are gauging them. But what is definitely evident, and I'm reforming your question back to you, is the demographic change, the life expectancy that has gone up in our part of the world. It has gone up everywhere, but particularly in our part of the world, people would die young. Now they don't die that young anymore. So the cancers of old age have gotten added. And there is a huge chunk of them. Prostate, esophagus, in the women, ovaries. So all the cancers that are supposed to come in your old age, we were escaping them because we wouldn't live long enough. So now they are part of our armamentarium. That's why you have these new kind of cancers which have come. They've added to our cancer burden as well. Living longer has added more cancer patients to our whole burden. We've just woken up to this hereditary business, and it is so true that, and we know now that about 10 to 15% of cancers are hereditary. And there are all kinds of variations in that. There is genes that you inherit, which have a dominant representative character in the next generation or in your siblings. There are regressive ones also, which means a light influence. So your risks of developing and transmitting cancers to your sibling and to your other generation are proportional to the strength in that inheritance. of the gene. So we have to be aware of it, and we are aware of it, and we factor it into our treatment to find out that a cancer case that comes to us, is it a sporadic occurrence? Most often it is. 85% are still sporadic. But if it's hereditary, then we have to then look at it differently. And we know now, because there are tests available, there are biomarkers for hereditary cancers, like the Lynch syndrome, for the polyps in the colon, it's a thyroid cancers, the breast cancer. There is clear-cut genetic preponderance which runs down in families. And there are all kinds of, there are cancer family syndromes of so many kinds, that there is a subject now, a very important subject in oncology called hereditary oncology, where a geneticist will sit with our team and will guide a patient family which has got this gene. The BRCA1, BRCA2 gene we all know about. It's common. Now we've woken up to it, and we're finding more BRCAs in our society. We didn't even look for them earlier. But now a simple 13,000 rupees worth of blood test, even in the private, can tell you whether you inherit that gene, because these are very high penetrance genes. 85% to 90% risk of developing that particular cancer that they govern. So it has become very relevant now, and we look at it in our biopsy reports, and we look at it in the blood. We find out the mutations. Blood biopsy, by the way, the new thing. Just getting a blood sample to tell you whether you stand a chance of inheriting a cancer, and if you do, what is your chances, and what kind of a cancer will it be? It's all happening. The human genome is being mapped at a furious rate, and I can tell you very soon you're going to have a human compendium. You'll have a genetic history. You'll have a DNA history. You'll have everything. Well, possibly whatever has happened elsewhere has come to India. It always comes to India quite fast for two reasons. Sometimes I joke also, because it comes so fast because our controlling regulatory authorities are, sometimes quite lax. Convincing a regulatory authority in Europe, or for instance, the United Kingdom, takes longer and much more than it does here. So, but the good thing is that the newer changes come into India first. So the first part of your question is answered. Yes, we've got the same kind of improvements for our patients now here, whichever. Now, what are these? First is diagnosis. Molecular diagnosis is a reality. Now we look at your molecular nature of the tumor, and we try to even find out what drugs will most likely work in this particular cancer, in this particular individual. So bespoke diagnosis, not off the shelf. Bespoke diagnosis, because no individual, no disease is the same as the other one. It may be the same stage, it may be the same disease, but it will behave differently, because there are so many things that go into what happens with a disease and its life history to guide that life history. So today, we, with a blood sample, can find out those things for which we needed tissue earlier. And it's happening. Our patients are getting there. So mutations are being mapped. And those mutations are being attacked by drugs which are coming at such a furious rate. Oral tablets called tyrosine kinase inhibitors for lung cancer, for ovarian cancer, for all kinds of cancers now. With each year, new and new drugs getting added to the armament. In fact, there's an information overload in this regard. Sometimes I wonder, my poor brain, how will it handle the whole thing? But don't have an option. So you've got to be updated, because US FDA, United States Food and Drug Administration, clears these drugs on a double. They do it because so much research is happening. It's become easier to do research because of, you guys, media, digital, artificial intelligence. Things happen faster, quicker, across continents, and therefore newer drugs coming in, attacking these mutations, the fibroblast growth factor, the vascular endothelial growth factor. So new drugs, new armamentariums. Your armory's got smart guns now, targeted bombing for these illnesses, and immunotherapy. This just uses body's own immune system to fight that cancer and defeat it. CAR T cell therapy. These have become possibilities for our patients here, and they're already in operation. Similarly, for delivery of radiation, the proton beam, tomotherapy, newer and better machines which deliver accurate radiation to kill that cancer without causing a scatter, getting better results and lesser side effects. And therefore, and many other things. So molecular diagnosis, targeted therapies, bespoke oncology, where I can tailor my treatment to your disease completely, and even monitor what's happening with you through your blood samples by looking at circulating DNA. Fascinating stuff, new drugs, but expensive.